I have a very special guest today. Her name is Shang. She is the founder of Save Your Sense, and she is the Harvard educated author of this amazing book that we're going to talk about. So I think I see her. She is in the room. I'm just going to let her in. Give me a second here. I hope she can join us. Let's see. Sometimes things take a little bit longer. Hi, Shang.
Hi Maya, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really happy that we're actually able to make this happen.
Yeah. Can we double check if your video is on? For some reason, I'm not seeing it.
You're not seeing my video? Let me ask everybody. Can you see my video? Uh, if you can see my video, please let me know because I see you and I see me just fine. Um, Let me ask.
Okay.
Oh,
I
people are
just,
saying yes. Okay, so but you can't see me?
it's okay. It's fine.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No
I
worries.
don't know. Should we rejoin?
No, I think it might just be a glitch. I don't want to mess with it.
Okay. Okay. Well, hopefully we fix this and it all kind of works itself out. Sometimes technology is really funny, but people are saying they can see both of us. That's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to make your time worthwhile. Shang is absolutely amazing. And for those of you that don't know her, Shang, do you mind just telling us a little bit about your background? I think that's very important because what we're going to talk about, I want to put that in the context of your background and where you come from. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Uh, sh- sure. So financially speaking, I finished saving for my retirement when I was 31 years old. And that is due to a couple of things. One, my parents did teach me financial literacy when I was a child. I got my education, my college, and my MBA paid for via a combination of parent support and scholarships. And so I was able to basically start saving and investing with my very first paycheck. And my husband and I, we married about 12 years ago, really focused on decreasing our lifestyle while increasing our earnings so that we just saved and invested over $100,000 for many, many years, which is why I'm able to be work optional today and just focus on raising my children.
That's incredible. So let's go back a little bit and talk about your parents teaching you about money, because obviously that has made a huge difference in your life. It has really set you up for success. So, did your grandparents teach your parents about money?
Absolutely not. They grew up in poverty. My parents came from rural farming, cultural revolutionary parts of China where like you don't even have running water in the house. So there was no money to be spoken of. Both my parents were just extremely gifted and lucky to be able to get an education, a very sought after education that wasn't available to most people at the time just by merit alone. And they were able to leave China with me when I was very young and not grow up in that time. It's hard to imagine now because most people think China is just, one of the biggest economic powers in the world, but it was not like that at all 50, 60 years ago.
And if you don't mind me asking, what did your parents do when you said they got education that wasn't available to everybody? What kind of education did they get?
My dad studied in secret. During the Cultural Revolution, there were no schools. All children either just hung out at home, or if you are able-bodied teenager and older, you're basically forced to work in farms all around the country. So they were just, everyone was taken from their homes and do child labor. My dad was able to study in secret while going through child labor.
Wow. So that's like, I need to tell that to my kids. They need to know how lucky they are. I
Yeah,
have two
I know. School's
teenagers.
not child labor.
That's right. I know they think they have it so hard sometimes. It's like, no, you don't. Not at all. So what prompted your parents to teach you about money? Obviously, it was that they come from poverty, they wanted better life for themselves and for you. And how did they teach you about money? Like, what were the lessons like? Did you have to, like, did you have to do certain things?
No, I think they unconsciously taught it because becoming financially stable was so important to my parents. And because I was the only child, everything that they did, I just observed. And I guess I'm a very observant person. Like I noticed they work longer hours. They often left me home alone when maybe they probably shouldn't have to work. And I was left to fend for myself at home. So I had to figure out my own schedule. I saw my parents budget. They actually had just this yellow legal notepad out on their table every day where they wrote down their expenses. This was before, people started moving to spreadsheets and apps. So I saw it live. I saw budgeting happen and I just kind of assumed, okay, that's what adults do. And then starting in middle school to encourage and kind of force me to do well in school, my parents pay me an allowance that was tied to my grades. Not something that I as a parent agree with, but at that time I had to get straight A's to get an allowance. And then with that allowance, they also told me that if I didn't spend all of the allowance by the end of the year, they would match it. And so those things were the ones that stood out the most to me. But just seeing my parents being super, super frugal for so many years, and then revealing at the end, like when I applied to college, I still thought we didn't have money. And then they revealed at the time that they had been frugal to save up my college fund was when I realized, okay, to reach a really big financial goal, you have to sacrifice a lot to do it.
Right. So, I've interviewed a lot of successful people, and many of them are Instagram influencers. And it's really interesting because if they learned about money from their parents, they also said that they learned by observing. So this is one thing that I really want everybody to understand. Like, because sometimes I get people asking me, "Oh, can you give me a spreadsheet to teach my kids needs or wants?" And I'm like, I have lots of spreadsheets. I do. But the best thing you can do is like really use real life to teach your kids about money. And I think that is the best way to teach. It's to set the good example for our kids, which is like basically is what your parents did, and I think they did a great job. So tell us a little bit more. So now, like, okay, so you're grown up, now you're off to college, and you said your parents paid for some of it, and did you say you got some scholarships as well?
Yeah. So my parents paid for my undergrad and I had like a couple, several $1,000s of scholarships, so not like enough to move the needle. And then business school was half scholarship, half my parents.
Right. And you obviously say that that's something that has helped you once you graduated. You didn't have to pay student loans. You were actually
Yeah.
able to focus on your life.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, heck of a privilege for sure. And something that I don't take lightly, but also having benefited from it and seeing how hard it is to save up college funds for children. I also don't tell everybody that if you're a parent that you must do this because I think like just bringing up children in and of itself is already pretty difficult. Having any support for college is always a nice to have, but not something that I tell most parents, oh, you have to pressure yourself that you have to fully pay for college because it is quite unaffordable here.
Right. And so with that being said, do you believe, like, this is one thing that I tell parents, and I'm kind of curious what you say. I always say, like, put on your own oxygen mask first before you start taking care of your kids. Like, I really feel like parents should be funding their own retirement accounts and teaching the kids, giving them the knowledge, but I don't think you necessarily have to give them the money if
Yeah,
you cannot afford it.
I
Okay.
agree completely.
Okay. And so you graduated from university, or like, you graduated from Harvard. By the way, that's like a huge accomplishment. I don't think I know too many people that have graduated from Harvard. So
Thank
congratulations.
you.
And then, so what was your next step? Like, let's say, there are parents that are watching this and they have teenagers that are off to college, or some of them have youth that are in university and they're about to graduate. What should somebody do when they graduate from university?
Yeah. I kept a budget during college as well because with my parents' support, they had money for room and board. And then so after the meal plan, there's a little bit left over for textbooks, activities, and clothing. And I used a very rudimentary budget, just like the one I saw my parents have. It was in Microsoft Word to track everything. I worked summer internships all 4 years. All four of them were paid, but the first 2 years, it was not enough to, be on subsistence. The second 2 years, the internship after my junior year, oh shoot, I didn't have an internship after senior year, sorry. My junior year internship was the one that paid enough that I had savings left over. And my dad taught me to open a Roth IRA for the first time. So, apparently, according to my friends, I was the only person in the whole, in like anybody's like memory who talked about a Roth IRA before graduating college. So I knew about that very, very early. My parents told me that the only way that they could have saved up my college fund was because they saved and invested. They couldn't save the entire way. It had to be invested to get there. So upon graduation, I just kind of intuitively knew that I needed emergency funds. And so I had a signing bonus. So that signing bonus was enough for me to put security deposit and first month's rent. So I was independent right out of college with my first job. I rented with two other roommates that I knew. And then with my very first paycheck, I started setting aside money to build up, I think it was 3 months of expenses at that time. It took me a whole year to build up my very first emergency fund. So it did take quite some time. And then after that, I focused all of the rest of my savings on contributing to my company 401k and my Roth IRA. And then later on, I had enough money to put into a taxable brokerage as well.
Amazing. So, for those of you who are watching, or for those of you who have just joined us, so first 3 months emergency fund, and then investing 401k, Roth IRA, and then if there's any money left over in just a regular brokerage account. I love that. That's absolutely amazing. And it's really interesting what you said that when you talk to your friends, they say that you were the only one talking about having investing in the Roth IRA. I had a conversation. I had a privilege of interviewing Jeremy from Personal Finance Club, and he said that one thing that his parents gave him too was the financial education. And they also, like when he was a teenager and he had part-time jobs, his dad, the first thing his dad did is opened up the Roth IRA for him, and he started investing. And so he was investing in his 20s, and I think in his like late 20s, he was talking to his friends about something about Roth IRA, and they're like, "What is that?" And they had no idea. And he was like, I just thought this is what everybody did. So I think that is the power of us as parents financially educating our kids. It really gives them a leg up, in terms of how they go forward. Um, so okay, so let's move on a little bit. So once you started, obviously started doing really well, like you've been investing a lot, you married your husband, and you said you guys contributed over $100,000 each year towards your investing accounts, which allows you now to be work optional.
Mhm.
And tell us a little bit about your business, because I've been following you for a while. I think you're absolutely amazing. So I think that everybody on here needs to know about what you do and why you do it.
Yeah. I emphasize in my content as Save My Sense that in order to truly achieve wealth, we need to talk about your mindset, your mental health. And that's because when I first started writing about personal finance, it was just me expressing some of the things I learned during my journey to FIRE, which is early retirement. It was just a small blog, a small Instagram account at the time. And friends of friends, not my direct friends, but like, second degree, third degree friends would ask me to help them with paying off their debt. And I noticed when I created these coaching plans that the people who struggle the most in paying off their debt or continue to cycle into the same kind of debt, it had nothing to do with how much money they made. Like two of the ones I remember the most, they both made more than $100,000 at the time. I was like, they make good money, but they couldn't get out of debt. And why is that? Even though like mathematically I could make it all work. And that's when I dove deeper. And one of them did tell me that she was going through depression at the time. And that's when I was like, oh, I need to dig deeper into this. And I started doing all the research behind it. I was in PubMed a lot, reading research papers. And over the years, I began to develop the scientifically informed background, understanding how the way our brains are wired and the health of our brains has everything to do with our ability to change our financial trajectory, probably even more so than the money that we make or like the knowledge that we have.
So, and that's, I'm assuming that is what prompted you to write your book, because I want to talk about your book as well.
Yeah, exactly. The premise of my book, Wealth is a Mindset, is talking about how we can literally rewire our brain and change the chemistry of our brains to get better at personal finance.
So, tell me a little bit more about, like, what, like, maybe actually everybody who is watching this, what would you say is like one thing that everybody can do right now to change their mindset around money, or even be aware? Like, some people don't even know like about what
Yeah.
this money mindset thing is.
In my book, I talk about the root cause of your money issues. Like if you're feeling struggle, fear, anxiety, difficulty around personal finance, there's a reason why you do it. Like the struggle and the fear you feel are actually the symptoms, and we have to find the underlying disease, so to speak. And for some people, it actually is a disease, like a mental health issue, and for some people, it isn't. And in my book, I propose basically three main ways that we can diagnose what is going on with you or what led to the way you think about money today. Because if we can diagnose it, then we can actually make real life changes. Because otherwise, you might follow a blueprint, you might follow, the 7 baby steps whatsoever, and not understand why you're doing it.
Right. And it's so interesting because I find that sometimes, like, here's one concept that I teach the kindergartens, and I know they understand it. It's understanding the difference between needs and wants. And I understand that, this is easy for kindergartens to do, and like we practice, and we do certain games and whatnot. But then I also realize that there are adults out there that struggle with this concept. And it's not necessarily because they cannot understand what's a need, what's a want. I really feel that this is like a mindset issue, that something must have happened in the past that
Mm-hmm.
chooses us to repeatedly, makes us choose repeatedly wants over needs, when we know that we have only a limited amount of money, that we cannot keep putting things on our credit cards anymore, that we need to stop, but we don't know how to stop ourselves. It's like we give ourselves these excuses, like I'm worth it, or which we're totally worth it. But it's like, I think there's a different, like, some sort of narrative that's going on in our heads. And I see you nodding your head about, when I'm saying all this. Do you want to like chime in?
Yep. 3 root causes. There are 3 root causes to probably explain 90% of the bad money behavior that I see out there. And you can relate to 1, 2, or all 3 of these money root causes. They're called feast and famine. Uh, sorry. My mind is blanking. Feast and famine, adverse events, and scarce immigrant.
Sorry, I'm just
Feast,
laughing about the last one because that's me.
and like I said, people can relate to 1, 2, or all 3. So feast and famine, I'm gonna start with that. Typically, feast and famine is a family that lives paycheck to paycheck, primarily low income, but actually can be any income. It's any person who grew up with their parents not knowing how to budget properly, and so they cycle where when there's money, it gets spent. When there's no money, they go into credit card debt. If you grew up with feast and famine like root cause, you're most likely to be very impulsive as an adult because you did not learn advanced planning and executive level thinking from your parents that way. So that's the first root cause. Second root cause, adverse events. This is when at some point in your life, money and resources were used conditionally to control you. And this is actually a little bit of my background, but I've gone through therapy and really, addressed it. Basically, the difference between a feast and famine parent versus a adverse event parent is if your parents feast and famine, they'll throw you a birthday party because they love you and they throw you a birthday party even if it causes them to go into debt. An adverse event parent will only throw you a birthday party if they think you're worthy of it. And that worthy can be what you look like, how much weight you've lost, whether you did well in school, whether you behaved well at home, et cetera, et cetera. And adverse events is actually, I think, one of the most abusive kind of root causes out there. And some of the examples, the people that I've worked with in my book often came from these very abusive backgrounds. If you're in adverse events, you grew up being told by the most important people in your life that you are not worthy unless you did X. Like you don't have inherent self-worth, which I believe is complete bullcrap. Like I think everybody's worthy of love and everybody has value intrinsically. That's also Christian, from my Christian background. And so you grow up and even though your parents may no longer be active every day in your life, you're trying to live up to this external standard. And so your money behavior, if you're from adverse events, is that you're constantly trying to seek your identity. You have identity seeking money behavior. This comes out as people who spend on apparel, luxury goods, beauty, aesthetic treatments. That can be one. Or you might just throw yourself into your career and you define yourself by your career so much at the cost of your personal health, at the cost of your personal relationships. Or it can go really negative where I see people having substance abuse, drug abuse, alcoholism, things like that. Then the third root cause, scarce immigrant, which is probably about 80% of my background, is your parents took the biggest risk of their lives and left everything they knew behind, their culture, their village, their support system, their language, their food, to establish them and you in a newer, likely wealthier country. And to do so, they took the biggest risks so you don't have to. So growing up in a scarce immigrant household, you're often told by your parents, do it safe, do well in school, don't be like us, don't struggle like us, get a good job, make good money. And that's exactly what my parents told me. And people often mistake frugality for scarcity. It's not the same thing. They're like, oh, I grew up frugal and my parents were frugal, therefore I'm scarce. I'm like, nope, that's not it. You're scarce if you are risk avoidant. And if you have parents constantly telling you, don't do this, don't go into business, become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, computer scientist, or these days buy real estate, that's scarcity because they're telling you to take the safe path, the established path. And that's not necessarily appropriate information for everybody, especially if what I've seen amongst children of scarce immigrants is you may do really well career-wise, but you don't take the risks, you don't put yourself up for promotions, you don't negotiate your salary, you don't jump industries, you're afraid of entrepreneurship, even if it might be a better fit for you, and that was my issue. And also you shy away from investing in the stock market and you go to real estate, which isn't always necessarily the best pathway for most people to go into when it comes to investing. And so in my book, I break down these three root causes and then I prescribe next steps and what to do based on your root cause. Because if it's then tailored to what the heck is actually going on with your mind, then we're talking real change.
Wow, that is really powerful. And I think that majority of the people can relate to all three. And I see some comments in there, people saying I relate to number three. And then if you've been sitting here and kind of watching the whole thing, I know people are coming in and out, but I'm kind of curious, which one are you? Are you the mix of all of them? Are you number one? Number one is feast and famine. Number two is adverse events. And number three is scarce immigrants. So I think for me, I'm a little bit of like, I think the last two as well. And it's really interesting. I do feel that I've moved from being a scarce immigrant because um, my parents, it was like that typical thing that a lot of parents say to their kids, you know, go to school, get good grades, get into a good college or university, get good grades, get the best job that you possibly can, and then work until you retire, right? And that just really wasn't for me. I mean, I did get great grades and I did get an amazing job at the end, but I was miserable. And so I think I would have been, I don't know, like I mean, it took me a while to get to where I am, and I am finally embracing my entrepreneurship.
Love
Um,
it.
yeah, and I see people saying, some people are saying yes, all three. Somebody's saying to share book information. Can you
Yeah.
just put the book, please?
I
Um,
actually, I think my Instagram's having issues. I can't type comments in the
oh,
comment chat, but give me 5 seconds. Let me run and grab the book. Just a second.
okay, grab the books. So, for those of you who are just joining us, we are live with Shang. She is the founder of Save Your Sense. She is the Harvard educated author of this absolutely amazing book, which I really think everybody should read. She was just explaining how our money mindset that we grew up with, it really shapes how we deal with money. That's her book, Wealth is a Mindset, and it's available everywhere, right? Amazon. uh
Amazon, Bookshop, Barnes and Noble, and on my publisher's website as well. And then occasionally we run sales. But yeah, if you visit my profile, it's also on my profile. So I'll kind of like put this to the side.
Yeah, make sure you follow her, please. You can just go in the top left corner and make sure you follow Shang. And then on her profile, you will be able to see more information about her book. And she has a lot of other great resources as well. But I find that is so relatable to most of us. And that's one thing. I remember the first time I encountered money mindset was maybe some 7 or 8 years ago. And honestly, I thought this was a joke. I'm like, money mindset? Like, what are you talking about? Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Keep it there just so people
I
can
know I
see
can't
it.
prop it up. It's like I don't have a box big
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah. The last name is spelled Saavedra. Is that correct, Sean? Did I
Yes,
spell
this
it
is
right?
gonna be hilarious. I finally found a box big enough. It's my breast pump box.
Oh, perfect. Just put it up there so we can all see it.
Pregnant mom coming up. Here we go.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah. It's a fantastic book. So you said based on your research and everything, you also went through some therapy. And that's another thing, by the way. This is becoming, I wouldn't say popular because popular is a wrong word, but I think as as humans, we evolve, we realize certain things. And so I think that there's this movement now in financial literacy space where people are realizing that we actually need something called financial therapy. And you might be like, oh
Yes.
my God, what is that? Whatever. But I think that's real. Like, we all need it. So tell us a little bit more, because if you don't mind sharing some of it, if you don't want to talk
Mhm.
about it, that's okay too. What was that like? Did
Yeah.
that help? Would you
Oh
recommend
my
it to
God.
others?
I mean, especially if you're adverse events, I think like my number one thing in my book is like go get therapy. And I'm really here to destigmatize the conversation around mental health, especially in where I come from, the AAPI community, Asian American Pacific Islander. It's like if you say anything about, oh, you have depression or anxiety, people are like, what's wrong with you? Like that's your personality or something. People have this terribly incorrect perception that mental illnesses is a sign that you are screwy personality wise. And that's so not true. There's actually real chemical imbalances and sometimes also like physical reasons why people might experience mental health issues. I went through it myself. I had 2 bouts of postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. They were both related to the crazy hormonal swings that you go through as a postpartum mother. It had nothing to do with my personality whatsoever. And then when I experienced that, I was able to articulate it a lot better by, and I take a lot of this inspiration from a mental health documentary and screening that I went to in my late 20s, where a doctor got up after, it was a really touching documentary actually about a fellow student who was a couple years younger than me at Harvard, who died by suicide due to depression. And she said, look, you go to a heart doctor if you have heart disease. You go to the doctor if you have a flu. You go to your OB if you're in labor. Why do you not go to a mental health doctor when your brain is sick? And that like blew my mind because I was like, oh, mental illness isn't a disorder of me, it's a disorder of an organ, the organ being my brain. And once I stop seeing my brain as me I started to see my brain as an organ, just like any other part of my body. And I know it's like a very unemotional way of talking about it, but I actually think like taking the emotions out of the conversation, saying, you're just sick, go get treated, created a greater urgency for me to be like, let's talk about it that way, because I think that can actually get people the help and the health care that they need.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And there are actually quite a lot of financial there's different, of course, different therapists, but there are also people who are financial therapists that are out there helping people. But I hear you. I mean, I grew up in with Eastern European mindset, like God forbid you go to therapy. Like there is not like what's wrong with you? Like,
Yes.
just get it together.
Yeah.
And
Snap out of
it's
it.
yeah, exactly. Snap out of it. So, but yeah, I think like mental health is like really something that we need to start viewing differently. And so I wanted to change the conversation a little bit. So now, I mean, you've come a long way, considering like where you were born to where you are now. You are doing so well. And how many kids do you have?
Two with one on the way.
Yay,
So almost
congratulations.
three.
Almost three. Yeah. So tell us a little bit what or I don't know if you're already teaching your kids about money or maybe like what you're planning on teaching them. Like, what do you have in mind for them?
The greatest fear that my husband and I share, and I think we share this with high net worth individuals in general, the greatest fear that anybody who's more self-made, although I don't think anyone's ever completely self-made, the greatest fear is that the next generation is not going to have the same work ethic and the same kind of sense of like ownership over wealth. And that's very true. Like it's very easy for anybody who follows me on Instagram to tell me what to do with my money. Oh, OPM, other people's money, super easy to spend. And so we actually made the conscious choice, my husband and I, despite our wealth, we weren't going to live maybe at the level that other people at our wealth level lived, um, at least publicly to our children. Um, like we have a very average home. It's actually a rental. We have very average cars. They we don't take them to fancy restaurants. My husband and my dates are fancy, but the kids don't get, whatever they ask for. We actually still make them, despite being 5 and 2, they learn there's constraints, that they learn that they can't get everything they want. Because if you let your children have everything they want, they're going to grow up spoiled and entitled. And then with my 5-year-old, as soon as he was able to count, we started giving him an allowance that is not tied to his grades, because I don't agree with that. I don't think allowance should be tied to grades, to teach him budgeting. And we expect to do that for all 3 kids, recognizing that among siblings, there's going to be variation between the children's behavior. But we're very, very honest. Like we incorporate the language of money into our everyday speaking. Because if you guys think about it, like money literally runs the world. Hey, BB, my code name for my eldest, do you want the Costco ice cream cone, which is like $2, or did you want that Jamba Juice, which is like $10? Like we ask him to make that comparison. Which one is bigger? Oh, mommy and daddy have to. Well, this is a weird one, right? Because I don't actually have to go to work, but we still say mommy and daddy work to provide this meal. We work to make this house run, just to get them to understand that concept first. We can talk about early retirement way later in life. And currently the amount for allowance is $5 a week for BB, although he's actually not really counting. So, and then we'll increase that as their age goes up. And last but not least, I think it's your actions. When I talk to my coaching and my student clients, and I learned about your childhood, your kids are watching you. They're watching your every move. They hear your fights. They know when mommy and daddy are fighting over money. They know when money is tight, and they know when money isn't. They basically, they see children, when they see things, they take that at face value. So be very, very cognizant of what is it that you're communicating to your children through the life that you're living together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important. They're like little sponges and they observe and they imitate and they just think that's normal. I always talk about the story of one mom that actually said to me, she was raised by a single mom who was actually making a lot of money. She was one of the like really big executives in one of the public companies, and her mom wouldn't cook. Her mom would just order food, and like on the way to school, she would drive her and they would stop by a donut shop, grab some coffee, breakfast. She would give her money for lunch, and then for dinner they would like go out or they would order in or whatever. And she said when she was in her 20s, that's what she was doing after graduating from college, not realizing like where, like she's kind of like, oh, I was always poor. I didn't realize until I did my first budget and I realized most of my money was going towards eating out. Because but she's like, I took it for the face value. She's like, I thought this is what everybody did.
Hmm.
And so I find that our kids definitely do that. I also think, so it's funny actually because we are the same way. Like we are way better off than both my husband and I are first generation immigrants, and we're way better off than our parents. And so I find that there is a struggle, and there are people that don't have money, and they're like, "What are you talking about? What are you struggling?" But there is a real struggle when you actually do have money to decide how much you should give to your kids,
Hmm.
and how much, because you don't want to spoil them too much, but you want them to have better life than you did to a certain
Hmm.
extent. But you want also encourage the work ethics, and you want them to be grateful for what they have and not take it for granted. And there's a lot that goes into it, and it is a real struggle. And so people that don't have money, they're like, what are you talking about? But it's like, trust me, if you one day hopefully you get there and you will understand. And so I think as parents we try to make the best decisions we can. um Only later on we're going to learn whether or not those really were the best decisions, right?
Yeah.
um
And also each child is genetically different. Like it's nature and nurture, right? There's always aspects of your children that you also cannot necessarily change.
100%. And there's a great book by Jolene Godfrey. It's called Raising Financially Fit Kids. I call her the pioneer of financial literacy for kids because I got this book for our kids like 13 years ago. And in that book, she describes seven personalities that were all money personalities that we're all born with. And so I know for sure, like one of my kids was born more of a spender, but we were able over the years because of kind of how we talked to her about money and what she saw us do. She actually, I'm so proud of her how far she's come, and she's become a more conscientious and like more mindful spender. Whereas like our son, for example, he was more of a saver, and people are usually saying that, so it's a great thing that your son is a saver. But I was like, yeah, but I just don't want him to hoard money. I want him
Hmm.
to enjoy mindfully spending money. I also want him to be able to give money and donate money, because just holding on to money and keeping a pile of it, that's not aligned with our family values. So again, we
Hmm.
also had to work with him, and he kind of came a long way. um for me, for someone who's been teaching parents how to teach kids financial literacy for the last 13 years, I sometimes worry. I'm like, how are my kids going to turn out, right? Like I hope they turn out okay. Like I've done the best I could, but I don't, like I'm just doing my best and I'm applying all these things. My kids have been my guinea pigs, and my our son is going to be 18, so we're going to see how things go. He's going to be an adult
Yeah.
basically in a month. But with your kids as they get older, like what are your plans?
Um, I don't tend to overthink it too much, I
Okay.
guess. Because I don't know if just again just me being observant. I'm like, why is there just so much mom guilt or dad guilt out there, but mostly mom guilt, like present on social media, and even when I talk to people, and I'm just like, I think it's because maybe society places all these very unrealistic expectations on parents, and then if anything goes wrong with an adult, they're like, oh, look at their parents, look at how they turned out. I'm like, how about personal responsibility? Like when people are adults, they're kind of responsible for their own decisions too. So I'm like, look, most of the time when we read parent advice on the internet, it's the first best option. This is the ideal thing you should do. But I also don't kick myself for doing the second or third best option in a scenario where I don't have the ability to do the first best option. So uh, I'll just explain this in a very simple way. Um, like people used to Cream breast is best. I don't believe in that at all as a formula fed baby. And and also the studies have been debunked as well. I was hospitalized for the first few days after my second child was born myself. So we were separate for like 4 days, which is really, really awful as a like freshly postpartum mom not to be able to like be with your newborn. So he got formula. And yes, I also pumped and got out as much milk as I could. But he started out his life on formula until we were reunited and we got back on breast milk and whatever. And you know what? That was the best decision that I could have made under the circumstances that I had at the time. So as people think about teaching personal finance and dealing with money decisions with their kids and how is it going to evolve, I'm like, you learn as you go. Every child is different. Every parent is different. And you just do your best and don't let anyone else like twist your brain into thinking that you're failing. I think that's the thing. You just don't let other voices come in too much. Like I have trusted voices. There's doctors I'm willing to listen to. There's friends who are better at certain things that I'm willing to listen to. Occasionally I'll listen to my mom. Sorry, mom. I don't listen to you all the time. Occasionally I will. But the thing is, I pick my sources of influence and I just let everything else bounce off. I'm like, I'm not listening to you. I don't care.
Love that. And I really wish I just noticed there were some people from my Wealthy Kids Investment Club that just joined. And some of them I actually recall asking, they're like, but I think I'm too late, to teach my kids how to invest, or I didn't start investing early enough. And I think you're right. Like there's a lot of parental guilt. And I really hope that, our accounts, we're financial literacy influencers, that we're not making people feel guilty if they haven't started, putting money away and investing for their education, or, other brokerage accounts and whatnot. But I, you know, the fact is that you're here now and it's okay. Just get started, learn as much as you can, and embrace the process. And your kids, as they grow up, they will have a chance to, learn more and better their lives. There's actually one question that we
Yeah,
got. I didn't get
I
a
saw
chance
it.
to read it. Okay, should I read
So
it?
a
Let me
grant,
read it and then,
yeah.
okay, I'll just read it. So it says, I have a 3.5-year-old who is the first grandchild, and with three sets of grandparents nearby, he received gifts all the time. How can I protect him from getting spoiled by his grandparents? Do you want to take
Okay.
that
So
question?
there are like true gift giving occasions, and then there's times where you can run interception. So my in-laws are also the kind of people who drop off things really randomly, or whenever the kids go stay with them, they bring back something from Nana's house. It drives me bonkers, absolute bonkers, because our house doesn't have room for all this stuff. And so, to the best of my ability, I run interference, and yes, I realize it costs a little bit of friction and conflict with the grandparents, where I'm like, no to this, yes to this, no to this, yes to this. And they may not listen to me all the time, but at least they're aware that I have very, very strong preferences for the amount of stuff that I allow into the house. And I give a very like very reasonable reason. I'm like, we don't have space. I'm sorry, we're not getting a bigger house. We don't have space. But I don't let that, I don't put on that restriction during birthdays. I don't put on that restriction during Christmas because I'm not going to ruin the magic of those two occasions. And then also regularly, I do have my children go through their stuff and say, do you still play with it? To another friend who needs it more. And so I'm teaching them that concept of charity very, very early on. And they do come up with mostly random things, not necessarily thing I wanted to donate. We have a box, and then when they're out in school, I do a very, very thorough decluttering of the house, and I get it all out of the house.
That's a great way to teach your kids to be mindful with the stuff that they have. And I think it also helps not to spoil them. So that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually just want to take a moment before we end. So you can, okay, just tell us again, there are actually a lot of people that have just joined. So please tell us again about your book, what it teaches, and where people can find it.
Yes. Wealth is a mindset. Shang Saavedra, that's me. I'm Save My Sense. I teach you the ways to understand why you behave around money the way you do now. Like it's not a cookie cutter thing. There's specific reasons in your life that led to your money behaviors today. And if you don't like them, I give you the instructions on how to rewire your brain chemistry to change it.
And it's absolutely incredible, guys. Like, if you're just joining, you missed like Shang was actually talking about three different ways how many of us have been raised or have different mindsets around money, and these things are preventing us from fully, enjoying our wealth, growing our wealth. It's quite incredible. It's an actual science. So if you didn't see this part because you're just joining, I will be reposting on my feed this live for the next. It's going to be there for the next couple of days. So make sure you watch it, and then make sure you get her book because I think that this will be very, very helpful to you. Is the book available on Audible or is it an audiobook too?
We have physical, ebook, audiobook versions. They're all out. So
Amazing.
grab
And some
whatever
of the
version you
yeah.
like.
And Monique says, I fully recommend private coaching with Shang. She's amazing and so talented. So there you go, guys.
Thank
Make
you.
sure you follow her. Click her icon on the top left corner and follow her. And then you can also look into the coaching options that she has. And then she also has other sources. But if people want to find you outside of Instagram, where can they go?
I'm starting to do a advice column on YouTube. So I'm on YouTube at Save My Sense, and I take your petty money disagreements and I make them into an advice column. So
Amazing, amazing. Okay, well, that is it. Thank you so much, Shang, for joining me. I look forward to having you as a guest for my Wealthy Kids Investment Club. And as I said, I saw some people already join today's live. So they will be probably there when we chat more. And thank you so much and enjoy your day. And thanks, everybody, for joining us.
thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Maya, for hosting me. It was so fun.
Bye bye.
Bye.